Welcome. It's so nice to see you again and be with you again. And I have a really amazing guest with me today. If you don't know me, my name is Margie Hunter. And if you'd like to find me, you can find me at transcendingms.com. My journey began with the need for healing. And one of the most amazing tools that I found in healing was something called Ayurveda. Some people may not know what Ayurveda is, and that's the reason that I am having our guest with us today. She is the founder and the founding director of the Ayurvedic Living School in Arcata, California. She's an amazing human being besides being the founding director of that school. She studied at U.S.A, got her bachelor's in psychology, also studied at the Healing Hands School of Holistic Healing in the California College of Ayurveda. She is a healer, she is a giver, and she's one of the nicest people I've ever met. So I'm not going to go any further. I'm not going to introduce or tell you any more about her, and I'm not going to tell you any more about Ayurveda. I'm going to let her do the talking and tell us about herself and tell us about Ayurveda. So let me bring her on with me. And her name is Traci Webb. Welcome, Traci. I'm so happy to have you with me.
Hi, Margie. Thank you so much. I feel so welcome. You almost brought me to tears with your beautiful introduction. Thank you so much. Oh.
So the reason I asked you to come with me to Transcending Together is because I really think it's important that people know what Ayurveda is. In my healing and overcoming MS, Ayurveda was an amazing tool. I might say it was one of the more valuable tools. It was the yoga and the Ayurveda to bring my body back to balance. And I had no idea what Ayurveda was. So I would like you to tell us what Ayurveda is and what Ayurveda can do for us.
So, Ayurveda, it means the science of life. It's actually broken into two words, Ayur and Veda. And Ayur means life, and Veda is the science or study or knowledge or wisdom of. So, it's literally is the wisdom of the totality of life. And actually, according to our ancient Ayurvedic texts, Ayurveda essentially teaches us what is good for life and what is harmful for life, what is beneficial for life and what is detrimental for life, how to extend our life and how to make the happiest life. So that in a nutshell is Ayurveda. And what does that mean and how does it actually express itself? It expresses itself as the medicine system, which is very much intimately linking us with living in harmony with nature. And so at this current time on the planet, that's part of why I believe we're seeing the rise in Ayurveda, is because we're also having this planetary shift that's happening. The consciousness and the health of the humans, along with the consciousness and health of the planet itself, is in a shift. Mm-hmm. And so Ayurveda, I believe, is playing a small but powerful role in that shift on helping us to understand the nature of who we are. And at the heart of Ayurveda, Margie, is really the fact that we are part and parcel of nature. That the idea is that whatever is in nature is also in us. And likewise, the opposite's true. Whatever's in us is also in nature. So what that means in Ayurveda, we call that the 5 elements. And so those 5 elements are ether, air, fire, water, and earth. And that sounds kind of wooey, but actually from even the scientific, right? From the scientific model, even we can think of it as the periodic table.
Right.
And various aspects and combinations and permutations of the elements within the periodic table. Things, for example, like gases equal air element, right? Things like acids become fire element. The actual space between the electrons, protons, and neutrons, which again, atoms are actually, right, mostly space. That's ether element. It's the space, and the universe actually, and the scientists have now proven this, is that it's really just space. It's emptiness. And then we have water element, which is anything which is liquid, anything which has a flow to it, even like our emotions and how they're always changing, like the moon flowing. And then the earth element is carbon and various other minerals and things which have a solidity quality to them. That's the solid state of matter. So really what we're talking about with the elements and our association and relationship with nature, even from that science mind, it's like looking at nature from the solid, liquid, gaseous states, right? And so, and what that means is that the universe is created of these molecules, but we are too. So, what Ayurveda says is each of us has a particular constitution, what we call prakriti. And prakriti is your birth constitution. It's actually your constitution at the moment of conception, and it never changes. So that means, for example, if Margie is an earth and fire person, or what we call a kapha and pitta combination, that will never change. But what can change is what's called our vikruti, which is our imbalanced state or our current state, which is basically, if you think of it, I like to think of it like the layers of an onion. So
Mhm.
that as you start to ride over our lifetime, even during gestation, our mother, what food she's eating, maybe our parents are fighting and bickering. So various things can happen. Maybe there's, cataclysmic earth changes or something, a flood or something can happen. So even during the womb phase, we can start to have layers of what we call vikruti or imbalance. Again, the layers of the onion. So over the course of our lifetime, obviously outside of the womb and in our childhood, with our lifestyle, our diet, and our relationships, essentially is what is making the base of our health and happiness, our diet, lifestyle, and relationships. Over the course of our life, we can develop layers of the onion, which really aren't the truth of who we are. You can think of it like the outer coating of the onion that's brown, but if you peel it off, it's like, oh, you see, it's really white underneath, right?
Right, right. Yeah.
So that's true for humans. That's true for all creatures, actually, animals and humans, is that we can get these layers of imbalance. So at the heart of Ayurveda, Margie, is this striving to really reveal and uncover and discover who it is you really are on the inside. And that's what we call your true birth nature, the elements and the state of balance, which, for example, for you or somebody who's a kapha pitta, it would be having their kapha pitta nature at the forefront and not having any other blemishes within the system, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So it brings you into balance, basically, is what you're saying.
Do into balance.
Now, it's my understanding that it's not just the physical, it's not just what you eat, it's also a holistic aspect of you, right? That onion that you're peeling is psychological, it's emotional. There's a whole lot that's going on in that process. Am I correct?
That's correct. So according to Ayurveda, we have three bodies. So we have our physical body,
Mhm.
which is our earth body, and it's made up of food. We call it the Annamaya kosha. Anna meaning food. Is like the food illusory sheath of food is what it really kind of translates into. It's like an illusory sheath, this shell body. But then at a more subtle level, we have our subtle body, which is actually where our senses play a very powerful role. So how we said, for example, that with the earth body, food is what builds it up. It's built up by the food that we eat that sustains it and creates it. So we always want to choose the foods according to Ayurveda that are in harmony with our constitution. We can talk more about those things in a moment. But and then for the subtle body, it becomes really important not only the things that we take in through the senses. And by the way, the five senses, we use this as a form of healing in Ayurveda. So for the senses, we have the sense of taste, for which we use food and herbs to heal. We also have the sense of smell, which we use aromatherapy to heal. We have color therapy to heal the sense of sight and the colors and the vibration of the colors in our environment. We have the sense of touch, which is the air element, which is coming in through the skin, which is massage therapy. We can talk later about daily oil massage, maybe teach a little bit of that. And then we also have sound therapy, which relates to the ether element and the sense of hearing. And so here it means that Ayurveda says that we can hurt ourselves or heal ourselves through our senses. So Ayurveda is very much a sensory therapy medicine system. And why is that? Well, for many reasons, but I brought it up because we're talking about the subtle body. Many of the sense therapies heal, the truth is they heal the mind,
Mhm.
right? So we do mantra and we think it sounds so good, but actually it has a very powerful effect on our state of consciousness and the flow of prana and thoughts through the system. So we use the senses to heal the subtle body and to nourish the subtle body, to enliven and invigorate it with prana and specific aspects of prana. And
And
we
what
could
is
talk more
prana?
about that. Prana is life force. Good question. Prana is life force.
Okay.
And it's not just life force. There's actually three components to prana. We call them, they're called the Tri Tattva, which are like the three qualities of existence that really are at the heart of manifestation according to Ayurveda philosophy. And they are rooted in the sun, the moon, and space. So in the atmosphere, we have Agni, which has its source in the sun. On our planet, the source of Agni, and the fiery prana, the energy of fire on the planet, is our sun. And from our sun, all of the fiery beings and herbs and foods receive their fire. And so what that means is chili peppers relate to the sun. And chili peppers have a specific type of prana known as Agni. It's a fiery energy. But if we do too much of it, especially if we're a fiery person, it can overheat us and cause us heartburn and skin problems and heart disease,
I
etc.
can vouch for that. Yes.
Yes, any good pitta can vouch for that. I'm right there with you, Margie. Yes, and so the watery form of prana on our planet particularly comes from our moon, and there's a vibration of nurturance. Agni is the energy of transformation. So it means that fire, like your fire in your fireplace or in the forest currently in California now, it has a transformative effect. Yes, it's powerful. Yes, it damages. Yes, it can cause disease, both personally and collectively, right, on the planet. But it also, at its heart, what it's seeking to do is actually to transform and bring the light out within the situation or within the person. And then likewise, the water element, it associates from the moon, and we call that soma. And its energy is the prana of nurturance. So water element is known to be the nurturing force of the universe. And it associates it, you could think of the moon as like an archetype of it, but it's also believed in Ayurveda that the moon is the root of the water on our planet. And that's why our tides
Tides, yeah.
get affected, and it's also our inner tides, our inner emotions, and our inner water metabolism gets affected by the state of the moon, our place on the planet. So that's the energy of nurture. And so what that means is that all of the watery things on the planet and people on the planet, they're very much associated with the moon, and they're dominated with the prana of soma, or water element. And so this is things like cucumbers that are very watery, or watermelons that are watery, but it's also anything that has water or fluid in it. It relates to the moon. It means rivers and oceans and streams, and even oils and coconuts that are full of fluids. Those are all associated with the moon. And so that's another aspect of prana that we use to heal. The third aspect of prana, and by the way, the water element, that nurturing energy, it really provides the substance of life. It provides the nurturance from the foods as we receive the soma. Then the aspect of the sun, the fire, the Agni, it's actually the part of our body, our digestive acids, which are related to Agni, that transform the soma and the cucumbers and the grains and the juicy fruits that we eat. And
Into that which we need, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly, yes. And it creates the bodily tissues from that soma. The Agni converts that soma so that the soma can become our bodily tissues. Now, the intelligence factor is the final part of prana. This is a very deep question you asked. What is prana? But prana, the third aspect of prana, is known as marut. And marut is actually, you can think of it like celestial space. It's the environmental space. It's even out in outer space, the space of outer space. It's also the winds and the movement of our sun around its sun and our planet around the sun. And it's also the movement within our body. It governs the movement and the flow of the soma and the Agni. And so what it really does, and what it's really like, how we said fire has transformation as a part of its quality, a part of its nature. and water has nurturance as a part of its nature. Well, space and air, a part of its nature is divine intelligence. And so what that does is it means that space, which we could associate with creator, with source, like space, like where is the creator? Where is he or she or it? Well, we don't know, but there's an infinite quality of outer and inner space that we connect to when we're tapping into that question, right? And meditating on it. Well, that same quality of divine intelligence exists in our body, known as Marut, and it guides the intelligence of the flow of soma through our body. It brings what it means is it brings the vitamins, minerals, fats, proteins, carbohydrates, etc., phytonutrients to each and every organ, tissue, and cell exactly when it's meant to. So that's the intelligence of Marut. And it also is responsible for the spaces of the body and keeping the spaces open and clear and flowing so that the prana of soma and agni can flow. So that was a very deep question. And I know we got on a little side tangent. I hope I didn't lose you.
No, I think, because when I think prana, I think life force, right? But what does life force mean? So I'm really glad you explained it, because it's not just, I teach yoga. And so when I teach, I'll say, go beyond the breath to prana, that which makes the breath happen, right? But it's much more than just that. So I'm really glad you explained it, because it's all encompassing. That's who we are, is that pranic energy. Well, what does that mean? Exactly what you've just said, right?
Right.
So thank you. Thank you, Traci, because it's such a fascinating science. There's so much to it.
So much.
It's so important for us when we're trying to connect with everything around us. We're so disconnected in so many ways. And I think that's the beauty of Ayurveda, is that you learn to connect.
Yes, and you can see exactly, you learn the beauty, part of the beauty of Ayurveda is we learn to connect. Even in that discussion, we learned, wow, exactly what we opened this conversation with is what's in the universe is in us, what's within us is there. And that has a bigger field of effect and influence, where it's like, what's going on inside of our hearts? How is that affecting those around us? And that's not, it's when we start to understand that the elements and that this prana exists, it takes it out of the realm of ooey wooey into the realm of lived experience, right? Because like the rishis, they were scientists. The rishis, the ancient seers of India and beyond, that actually intuited all of the yoga and Ayurveda and Jyotisha and all of the Vedic sciences. But the idea is that, it's not meant to be a science where we use external senses like microscopes and telescopes to witness it and experience it. It's not, where you have somebody living from outside just looking in. It's actually discovered from within, right?
Yeah.
Which I know you do your yoga and your meditation and you teach these things. So that's a part of what we do in yoga as well.
Yes. So this whole, again, this is so dear to my heart because I know how effective it is. And I know that how effective it is to bringing balance to the body. When we get sick, as far as I'm concerned, yes, they give it a name, but it's an imbalance in the body is what's happening. So what do you do? What do you do to bring balance back to the body? Ayurveda has the solution to that, right?
Yes.
We're out of balance. So now we're bringing back all the elements. And if you can explain that a little further, Traci,
yes.
Because it's a beautiful process when it starts happening and you start feeling it.
Yes. Yes. Well, and that brings us back to how we got on that topic of the prana, like, because we're not just the body, but we do heal the body. There are 3 pillars of health in Ayurveda. So these 3 pillars of health are food, sleep, and nature-aligned lifestyle. Sometimes folks call it brahmacharya, but it's, in my lineage from Vaidya Mishra, we're taught that this is actually, it's really deeply not just like channelizing of sexual energy through sadhana and things, tapasya, but it's a lot of living in harmony with nature. Again, going back to that concept. Mm-hmm. So food, sleep, and sex, these are, or food, sleep, and nature-aligned lifestyle. These are the 3 pillars that if we It's interesting that in Ayurveda, Margie, the very things that we use to quote unquote heal disease, whatever it is, MS or, high blood pressure, it's actually the same three pillars that we use to prevent it.
Right.
So we said these are the pillars of health. What are they for? They're to prevent
Yeah.
disease, they're to heal disease, and they're to optimize our longevity of our life and the quality of our life. So even if we, for those out there kind of wondering, where do I start? Even just focusing on something as simple as sleep.
That'll
Because
make a huge
again,
difference.
it's a huge difference. And by the way, if we look at two of those pillars, since we learned the three aspects of prana, two of those pillars are dominant with soma. They nourish soma very deeply: sleep and food.
Mm-hmm.
Sleep and food, it means 4 times or maybe more if you're like me and you snack sometimes, but at least 3 to 4 times a day you're eating and sleeping, right? You're sleeping once a day, probably, and hopefully, and you're eating 3 times a day. So that's 4 opportunities every day to really rejuvenate your soma. And if I could kind of pass any one suggestion on to the community today, as far as from the Ayurvedic lens of what we need as far as on the planet at this time, it would be that we need rejuvenation of soma. We are a soma deficient culture, which means disconnected. Where's the bliss? Where's the community? Where's the family? Where's the hearth? Where's the food? Where are the meals? Where's the sleep? Where's the rest? These are all things which rejuvenate soma. And if we look at the Western disease pathologies, autoimmune, heart disease, suicide, depression, we could bring in the psychological into that more and more, especially for the folks, 20 years and younger, very sadly so. It's a lot of it is this overstimulation of all of this Agni and Marut of the online and the driven lifestyle, the fire, the online, all of the air, the continuous Marut energy from that. And it's really Vata energy from that, because Marut is pure, it's prana. The doshas are that which harms. But so it's interesting, if we look at what's going on in our culture, it really is dominated with these energies that are depleting. So a lot of what our culture, the Western culture, it's not even just the Western world, but it's the Western cultures, it's kind of permeating and being assimilated into the other traditional cultures, which were very naturally of the earth, and of the home and the hearth and the food and togetherness. As they're starting to sort of assimilate in our culture, then we're even starting to see things like diabetes and insomnia and these kind of things that necessarily weren't prevalent in these communities starting to show up in places like India and beyond,
Right.
So sleep is a key factor to even start with there on a base level.
And I want to read a quote
Yes.
that I think is your quote, if I'm not mistaken. And it says, empowers healers to be forces of transformation for themselves, their families, and their communities. Mm-hmm. We're talking about community. We're talking about going back to basics, really, right? To what my grandmother used to talk about. She knew nothing about Ayurveda, but this is exactly what she was talking about.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and grandmother, right?
Exactly. This is exactly the truth.
So that quote I just thought was so beautiful, Traci, because it encompasses so much and it's so important. Since you're talking about this, can you expound on that? And I think you are through what you're saying.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think, it's probably pretty self-evident to those on the planet at this time that the power systems and even the leaders within the power systems at large are failing us, whether it's politically, whether it's religiously, whether it's within the medical system. And we could go throughout every institution, throughout society and culture, and we would see that there is a bit of we could say it's a breakdown, but it's really a breakdown before the breakthrough, the darkness before the dawn, so to speak.
Yes.
And I know so many of us were feeling this, and this is why even in this moment during COVID, we're holding in our heart this possibility and this potential that we sense is possible. Mm-hmm. And we are coming together, en masse on the planet, online, in ways like we never have before. And the idea is with the empowering, it's really about self-empowering, because even in the Vedic world, they talk about the Kali Yuga. And so for folks that have that understanding, there's this concept of the dark age, which some believe that we're living now in the dark age. Some folks don't believe that, but if we can kind of just play with that for a moment, and within that philosophy of these various four yugas, the Kali Yuga is said to be dominated by teachers and teachings which are false gurus, self-proclaimed, self-appointed, where they don't necessarily have the best interest of the people who are following them, whether again it's politically, religiously, various other social systems. And the same is true for the medical system. Now, it's not always that there's a nefariousness to them. It's not always that there's a malevolence in their heart. Sometimes there's misinformation. This is actually misinformation in Ayurveda is considered it's really the primary cause of disease. And one way that we can translate it, there are many different ways that it expresses, but one of that is through misinformation. So if we look at the sum of the very young baby that allopathy is, couple hundred years old, if we look at just that rudimentary history and how long they've been evolved. Now, mind you, they have evolved incredibly over the short span of their history. However, when you compare that to a 5,000 plus year old medical system that Ayurveda is, and Ayurveda, by the way, it's not ooey wooey, something that's untangible. It's a science. Everything is organized, categorized, systematized. We have the 8 branches of Ayurveda that the doctors specialize in, etc. It's a scientific system. We had surgery. The first surgeries were performed from the Ayurvedic teachers and gurus of the past. So if we look at all of this kind of the disempowerment of the various systems where in a sense, we're always handing over our health to somebody else. We're putting our health in the hands of somebody else. We don't even speak that language barely, we barely, what are they saying to me? I don't understand it. And so really what I feel part of my dharma and my passion and my purpose in this life, my calling, like you couldn't stop me if you tried, like this is just what I'm up to and what I'm here for, is to really empower, especially to empower the mothers, to empower the women, so that we can raise families, so that we can raise children that have the skill sets to be able to heal themselves out of their home. And I always look at the healing center is outside of the home. We go to the healing center and there is a case for that. And there is a need for that. You mentioned you went to India and had panchakarma and it was transforming.
Yes.
And at the same time, same as meditation, all the healing, it starts within. And now if we look at your home like it is a container for your life experience, our home is the container of the totality of the force that is our life. And if we can look at it that way and understand that the center of our home is our kitchen, and that's our primary healing center. Mm-hmm. It's the hearth, we call it. And if you look at the hearth, it breaks down. If you remove the T, it's the H, it says heart, right? Mm-hmm. The heart of the home is the hearth of the home, and that's the heart of the healing. So I'm really, striking a movement to reorient, especially women or those who identify as the mother in the family, to start the caretaker, the lover, the nurturer, to really start to orient around the hearth, and especially start to empower the family from not only just the cooking and the hearth, but just orienting around the home as the root of health. That it doesn't have to start out, by pills, by somebody else's prescription. And so when we start to understand Ayurveda, what we start to be able to do is we become empowered with the tools and the medicines known as food and herbs and spices and oils and various other sensory therapies, medicines that we can actually use as our medicine.
Yes, when my kids were small, I used to tell them that home was where they were safe, that this home was where they were always going to be safe. And that includes the food that they ate, that includes how they were treated, that included what was given to them, all aspects. Mm-hmm. And I think that hearth is exactly that, right? What we have to offer to our family, to our children, to our husband, to our beloveds, right? Whomever enters our home.
Absolutely. I love that so much, that to hear that you were teaching that to your children so young. That's
Well, they
amazing.
like that that's what I was teaching.
Yeah.
That's what was coming from my heart, right?
Yes,
I
yes,
learned about Ayurveda much later,
yeah,
and but it's it's the same concept.
the same
That
concept.
concept of that purity of that love, and of going back to that. So what does
Yeah,
that give? That gives the best,
yes,
and
yes,
in nourishment, in intention, whatever it may be, it's always the best.
yes, yes. The
And
best.
this is what you're talking about.
Yes, it is. Exactly. Exactly, Margie. And the best starts at home. And that brings us back to, and kind of brings closure to how we talked about the physical bodies built by food, the subtle bodies built by the senses and by our thoughts and by our relationships. Because how what we hear is also not just mantra and music and the sounds of nature that heal us, but it's also, what are people saying to us, our conversations, what are we saying to ourselves, our inner dialogue.
Which is almost more important.
Almost more important. Yeah, hallelujah. And the other piece, and the final piece, is the soul body. Soul body, when we talk about like the best, the ananda, the best. So it's like, it's a full circle there. In Ayurveda, oftentimes we meet people in the physical, the diet, the sleep, the nature aligned lifestyle. But at the heart of it is that deeper connection, and it to ananda, to that unending, undying bliss within. And it can be sourced from various means, whether it's meditation, whether it's community service, like I know you do so much of in your life, and so yes.
Yes, and I think when you understand that when you can transcend and go to that source, it helps in that process of balancing. Because if that is not balanced, it's very difficult to just use food or just, and I don't, I'm not
No,
downplaying the importance of food, but that ananda, that connection is so important. And I think that's where Ayurveda helps us to find ourselves.
it does, but I'm so glad you brought that piece up. That was the point I was trying to make, is we can start with the outer. But if we look at it, the most subtlest part of who we are, being our spirit self, if we start from there, the blueprint of who we are, the subtle body, is birthed. And then the grosser form of the subtle body is our physical body. So if we want the deeper shift, this is why you might have somebody, they've had to have 4 surgeries for the same thing. They've been on the same medication for years and still they're not having any benefit, they're not healed. The healing at the deeper level, if you want to see the deepest sustained healing on the gross level of the physical body, it's coming through the various means, like I know you're teaching, the meditation and the Ayurveda. And I do want to say, one huge gift to meditators, I'm assuming you probably have lots of yogis and meditators in your community here, is that with Ayurveda, my teacher Vaidya Mishra always said this: if we're living the Ayurvedic lifestyle and eating the Ayurvedic food, when we sit to meditate, samadhi happens.
It's spontaneous.
Samadhi, it means when you're living the Ayurvedic way of life, aligned with nature, not being called out through the senses into all of the world and its, crazy making. We actually find that when you sit to meditate, you already, as you're living your life, you're already in a nature aligned state of peace. You're
You're in a
eating
meditative
sattvic
state.
food. You're in a meditative state. You're being present. You're eating food which supports the meditation, which is sattvic. You're living a lifestyle in harmony and in connection. It's not just in harmony, but in connection with nature, which is, I think, also a vital. You could have
Huge.
that as a topic another session or something. But
No, I tell my student, take your shoes off.
yes,
Walk
yes,
on the ground, touch
yes,
the earth, the
yes,
grass. For anybody that needs to heal, and you have to stay connected, because
yes.
it's in that disconnection that the dis-ease happens.
Absolutely yes, Margie. Absolutely yes. And that walking on the earth, it's connecting us to the earth soma. It's connecting us, so that soma, it has two aspects, water soma and earth soma. So anything which is dominant in earth element, which everything which is has earth or soil or solidity to it, that has an innately grounding quality. You know, it's like with kids, to calm them, they put like a heavy blanket on them.
Right. Yes.
And that leads us to Abhyanga massage,
Mhm.
which,
Which I love.
yeah. You said that that's a favorite practice of yours, right? The Abhyanga?
Yes, I have found that it really brings a sense of calmness to me when I'm self-nourishing. I'll let you explain what Abhyanga is, but when I am taking care of myself and making the space to take care of myself, my whole life changes in that moment, in all ways. And I'll let you explain what
Absolutely.
that means, because I think you understand what I'm talking about.
Yes, I mean, I can explain it, but you're experiencing it. And honestly, I want to give props to the experiencer in that, because we can do Abhyanga. So what is Abhyanga? Abhyanga is, it means Abhi, the limbs, and sorry, to rub, and Anga meaning the limbs, to rub our limbs. But really what it is, it's a warm oil Ayurvedic self-massage, usually self-massage. In this situation, we're talking about it as self-massage. You can also receive an Abhyanga like you did in your Panchakarmas in
Right.
India. Uh, but Abhyanga, what it is it's one of the primary lifestyle practices that we can do for ourselves on a day-to-day basis that provides and nourishes the soma very deeply, very instantly. Within 20 minutes, instant soma.
You feel it. There beyond a shadow of a doubt. You feel it.
You feel it.
I do it before I shower.
Yes,
And
yes,
so I
that's
rest 15, 20 minutes. Rest, I don't mean I'm lying down. I'm just sitting quietly and letting the oil soak in, letting the moment soak in after I'm done with a massage. And then when I shower, it's just an experience. Everybody needs to try this.
yes.
Whether you
Everybody
use
should try this.
coconut oil, sesame oil, whatever it is that
Yes.
your oil of choice. Later, maybe in another session, we can talk about the differences of the oils for the doshas, but
Yeah.
or the time of year or whatever it is. But it's an amazing experience. It's such a necessary time out in a positive sense.
Yes, it's an incredible time out. And I love to hear the fact that, Margie, that you're sitting there and just being present to it. And that's what we were alluding to, was stepping into the witness mode, being the receiver of the massage. And I think it would be fun. I think maybe we could do a session where we spend 30 minutes talking about the benefits and the proper protocols and the oil properties for Abhyanga, because it is that important and it is that powerful. If I could think of one lifestyle practice that's the easiest lifestyle practice for anybody to do, which is going to heal them the quickest and introduce them to Ayurveda the fastest, it's Abhyanga. It's
Oh, I love
Abhyanga.
that. Tracy, I would love to have you back with me to
That'd be
do that.
fun.
That
Wouldn't
would
that
be
be
fun.
fun?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be a lot of fun. I'm doing some sessions with women teaching lymphatic face massage. And
Perfect.
what's happened is we've come together around the hearth, right? And learning this. It's more about being together on Zoom and enjoying doing this. And yes, of course, the massage is lovely because you feel very good afterward. You can feel everything draining, but it's the coming together and learning this self-care, right? And
Yes.
remembering you're doing, what's the intention? Love is the intention. The
Yes.
intention is healing. The
Yes.
intention is self-care, right?
Yes. Absolutely. You've
We
got it.
gifted this body. We're the custodians of this body. We need to take care of it.
That's right. And you do very well. And you're a great role model. And you set a wonderful example for all those who know you. So thank you.
Tracy,
Thank you.
I'm just blessed to have had people like you in my life. That's the bottom line.
The feeling is mutual.
Thank you. I was one of those type A's that finally wound up getting MS, right? Who had to learn how to unlearn those patterns in her life.
Yes.
That was the bottom line.
Yep.
Unlearning all the things, taking out off all those layers of that onion
Yes.
coming to figure out who I really was. It was the gift in my life. MS was a gift for me.
Yes. Yes. It
Because
takes what it takes, right? Some of us are more stubborn than others, right? It takes what it takes.
yeah,
And so, yes, Ayurveda
some of
says
it,
the body is only ever healing itself. That's all
can
it's
you say
doing.
that again?
Ayurveda says the body's only ever healing itself. That's all it's ever doing. So even when we have a symptom that's a disease symptom, because MS is just a bunch of different symptoms.
Different things
People
that are
have,
out of whack.
yeah, right. Because MS, we have so many different plethora of symptoms that not everybody has. So that's your body's particular way of saying, pay attention to me.
Mhm.
And I'm so glad that you're doing Abhyanga, because that's one of the more powerful self-care therapies that one can do for themselves that has MS.
Yes, you can feel it. It slows down the nervous system. We have so many nerve endings on our body, on our on our skin. Yes, it's all, well, we could go on and on.
Yeah.
I know we're running out of time a little bit here. But if you had one thing out of the ABCs, I know you said that Abhyanga is one of the things that you think is very important, but if you wanted to sum up this ABCs, as I want to call it, of Ayurveda, our introduction to Ayurveda,
Mhm.
because really this is just the tip of the iceberg. Um, what would it be, Traci? What would it be? One thing that you would want people to know about Ayurveda?
Well, I think, again, at its core, it's about living and seeing ourselves as part of nature. So I think I would just encourage your community to just spend a moment reflecting after they get off this call on what is their relationship with nature and how can they embrace greater connection to nature. What one thing can they do today to embrace nature in their life more fully?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for being with me. Thank you for being with us, with all the people that are going to be listening to this, and it
Oh,
will have an impact on them.
oh.
Um, I'd
You're
like,
so welcome. Thank you for having me and introducing me to your beautiful community. I feel honored, truly. Thank you.
and if they want to get a hold of you, I mean, I'm going to be placing it at the end of this video, but if they want to get a hold of you, what is the easiest way for them to get a hold of you?
Yeah, I think just through the website they can see what I have to offer, the trainings and things that we do. We have Ayurveda health and life coach training, Ayurveda practitioner training, and herbalist training, all different trainings going on, all online, very accessible. And we have an incredible, beautiful community of people that support each other to learn and embrace this way of life. So if it's something that's interesting to them, they can, right on the website, they can actually schedule a coaching session to see if one of our programs is a good fit for them, and just to hear where they're up to in their life and support them in getting to where it is they're wanting to go with their health and their life.
So when you're saying coaching, it's not to become a coach, but to be coached. Am I correct?
That call is to be coached. Yes,
Okay,
we
good.
we train coaches, but we also train lay people. It's the
Okay,
same
good. So that
program we
if
offer.
something's wrong with me, I could call you and say,
Yeah.
Traci, I have a major imbalance. What can I do? And so you
Yes.
guide me through the process.
Yes, that call is for just free assessment of a free coaching for a half-hour session of just getting clarity around your life and like what you're up to and where you're wanting to go, so that we could see if we can support you with our programs or services. And then the website is ayurvedicliving.com, super simple.
Okay.
And the email address is info@ayurvedicliving.com.
Okay, terrific. And like I said, I'll put it at the end of the show. Um,
Wonderful.
maybe somebody will want to write it down right now and run to the phone, right?
You know,
or to the computer. Thank you, Traci.
you're
I'm
welcome.
really blessed
So
to have you in
welcome.
my life.
You're so
Really, I just thank you. Thank you for joining us and for sharing.
Oh, the feeling's mutual. You're so welcome. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
Hopefully, we'll be together soon, right?
I hope so. Yes, I hope so.
Thank you.
You're
Bye.
welcome.
Namaste.
Namaste.